points for today. It's 2 weeks into the Trump administration, 2 weeks. And a lot going on. Revolt at Berkeley, that's nothing new. We'll hear what Ronald Reagan had to say about that when there was, burning of chairs and things on Berkeley before. He doesn't buy it. Can you imagine? At any rate, we'll talk about that. The GOP is suspending rules to get certain picks through Donald Trump's cabinet. Betsy DeVos pushed back and now pushed forward. I don't know what's going on there. We'll figure it out. Plus, a school board member forced to resign after vulgar tweets concerning the Women's March. We'll also have Christopher Harris here, Steve Dulan, Megan Barth, and a whole lot more. Pack your lunch, sharpen your pencil. It's the Free-for-All Friday edition of the Steve Gruber Show.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, and welcome to it. I want to give you that Ronald Reagan taste right off the top here today. I do. You've heard about the students protesting at Berkeley because Milo Yiannopoulos was going to be there, the editor of Breitbart, to speak. And by God, we're not having any free speech around here because either you speak the liberal line or we'll have nothing to do with it, and we will burn things, and we will break things, and we will create chaos, and we'll beat people in the streets. In fact, they beat one person unconscious who had showed up to listen to Milo to see what he had to say. Beat the person unconscious in the streets. Ronald Reagan, when he was governor of California, there was trouble at Berkeley, and a bunch of professors and the media got together to tell Mr. Reagan, well, we have to respect the student body. Here's what Ronald Reagan's exchange sounded like with the folks at Berkeley back in, I think, 1967, 68. Go.
Those people told you for days in advance that if the university sought to go ahead with that construction on that property, that they were going to physically destroy the university. Now, why did you
negotiate many times?
Negotiate? What is to negotiate? What is? Don't you wait a minute on that issue? Don't you simply explain to these students that the university has a piece of property that it bought for future construction of the campus, and it was now going ahead with the plan?
The people of
What do you mean,
Reagan
negotiate?
Governor Reagan, the time has passed when the university can just ride roughshod over the desires of the majority of its student body.
Well,
the university is a public institution.
That's right.
Important institution
But the university,
for all of its own community and for the community of Berkeley that live around it.
All of it began the first time some of you who know better and are old enough to know better let young people think that they had the right to choose the laws they would obey as long as they were doing it in the name of social protest.
And he was right, and he got up and he walked out. As soon as you told people it was all right to do things and break things because they were doing social protest, when you were old enough and you knew better. Well, let me tell you, they may not know better now, but I do, and you do. You don't get to just burn things and break things and throw bricks because it's social protest. Therefore, it's okay. It's covered by free speech. That's absolute nonsense. You know it, and so do I. How's that for getting you rolling on a Friday? 888-900-9966. 888-900-9966. A French soldier. This just breaking news. A French soldier opens fire earlier today at a shopping mall beneath the Louvre in the center of Paris. He was attacked by an unidentified man wielding a machete and shouting, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. He ventilated him. He's been shot several times, but he survived apparently at this point. Authorities believe the suspect wanted to carry out a terror attack at the famed museum. No kidding. The attacker carrying 2 backpacks. Neither had explosives. It is believed the suspect may have acted alone. Not sure what the root cause was, except for I think I'll go with radical Islam. I'll go with radical Islam as being the root cause of what triggered this attack at the Louvre. Just the latest terrorist attack, while the left continues to go ballistic on Donald Trump for trying to keep America safe. The left going crazy. In fact, Sarah Silverman, I'm not quite sure who she is, but I hear her name from time to time. I know what she looks like. Don't think I've ever actually paid much attention to her, but she's calling for a military overthrow of President Trump. And why wouldn't she? I mean, he's been in office for 14 days. He's been in office for 14 days. Now it's time up. She sent a tweet. Here's what it says. Wake up and join the resistance. Once the military is with us, fascists get overthrown. Mad King and his handlers go bye-bye. You know, at some point, these comments from people in Hollywood go from free speech to calling for a military coup. You know, that might just be treason. That might just be a bridge too far. Meanwhile, a filmmaker, Lexi Alexander, chimed in defending the riots in Berkeley, saying if you need to punch Nazis. Riot when your college invites a Nazi. Because apparently anybody who has a different opinion than a liberal is now a Nazi. Any different opinion. Milo Yiannopoulos, who's a gay man, happens to be conservative, is now a Nazi. Because, as you know, there are a lot of gay Nazis, openly, in fact. I mean, you know history, right? I mean, good Lord. These people are so stupid, they give me a headache. It's well, and the problem is it's being egged on by former President Barack Obama, the guy who wants to divide the country and watch it implode, it seems. Why else can you explain, or how else can you explain Barack Obama's intent to come out here shortly and start taking free shots at the current president? How else do you explain what's happening with Congress, where Democrats are planning to protest Donald Trump's speech to Congress? We'll see how they behave, because right now they're not behaving well, so badly, in fact, Republicans are sidestepping them altogether for committee meetings and so forth just to get things done. In the spirit of Harry Reid, the Republicans are just moving past it to get things done. All right. 888-900-9966. Line them up, kids. It's Friday. It's the Steve Gruber Show.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
Here's a note for you, because you need coffee on a Friday, right? I do. Maybe you don't, but I do, and therefore I'm pretty serious about it. There's this company I talked about once before here on the program. Here's a second time. These guys seem to get my attention along the way. The Black Rifle Coffee Company. In response to Starbucks saying that they will hire 10,000 refugees while we have 500,000 veterans in America unemployed, 50,000 homeless, and a whole host of other issues I could point out. The Black Rifle Coffee Company, founded by a veteran, Evan Hafer, responded to Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz's pledge to hire those refugees and said they will hire 10,000 vets. The Black Rifle Coffee Company says it's going to hire 10,000 veterans. Here's a comment. I started Black Rifle Coffee Company to provide a high-quality roast-to-order coffee to the pro-Second Amendment and veteran communities. Between deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, I was working to refine both my coffee roasting skills and my firearm skills, says Hafer. I've spent over a decade researching coffee, refining my roast profiles, and, of course, drinking what I roast. Black Rifle Coffee is quite literally the combination of my two favorite passions. I take pride in the coffee we roast, the veterans we employ, and the causes we support. There you go. So if you're looking for some way to support your veterans in maybe a different sort of way, there it is. You can go to the Black Rifle Coffee Company. By the way, a note from yesterday, that FedEx driver that got out and put out the flag that was on fire, Matt Urin is his name. Matt Urin, we've also learned, was a veteran. And why wouldn't he jump out of his FedEx truck and put out a flag on fire? The veteran, looking at it going, this is absolutely ridiculous. All right, at the prayer meeting yesterday, the annual prayer breakfast, Donald Trump had some time to talk about those phone calls recently because he's been getting some grief about his phone call with the Australian Prime Minister and the President of Mexico and others. He said, listen, we need some tough phone calls around here. We're getting pushed around. And he talked about some of his policies at the National Prayer Breakfast. Here he talks about those phone calls, said you got to relax and you got to just not worry about it. It's clip 8. Clip 8, Donald Trump on the phone calls. Go.
Believe me, when you hear about the tough phone calls I'm having, don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. They're tough. We have to be tough. It's time we're going to be a little tough, folks. We're taken advantage of by every nation in the world virtually. It's not going to happen anymore. It's not going to happen anymore. We have seen unimaginable violence carried out in the name of religion. Acts of wanton slaughter against religious minorities. Horrors on a scale that defy description. Terrorism is a fundamental threat to religious freedom. It must be stopped, and it will be stopped. It may not be pretty for a little while. It will be stopped.
All right. There you go. And he's going to take a stand. Some of the other things that are coming to the top of the heap for discussion. North Korea. North Korea warned if they play with nuclear weapons, they will be dealt with unbelievable force. That's also coming back. But some folks think that it's too much too soon, that the shock to the political system is just coming too fast, and that people just can't keep up. And that's part of the problem, they say, that with the Trump administration. It's just too much too fast. You need to slow down because people can't take it. Well, there's a lot to correct. You have a short period of time. I mean, how often do you get a president in office that's doing exactly what he said he would do at the rate that he's doing it? Not terribly concerned about the protesters. Said, hey, you can do whatever you want. It's free country, free speech. That's great, but you can't burn and break things. You can't burn and break things. Now, coming up a little bit later on the program, here, we're going to have somebody here from the Cato Institute who says Donald Trump's ban on these 7 countries is illegal. I don't believe that to be true at all. But it's what we're going to be told by David Bier here, an immigration policy analyst. He says Trump's immigration ban is illegal. I believe he is stone cold wrong. Stone cold wrong. So we'll have a conversation about that because but this is what some of the people believe. You can't ban people from countries. You sure can. You certainly have can you imagine if we were in a war, say, with Germany? I'll just use that as an easy example. Oh, you can't ban Germans. That's wrong. It's unconstitutional. And what's wrong with you? Are you a racist? No, I'm a clear-thinking American that knows that you have to put American concerns first. I'm a clear-thinking American that knows you have to put American concerns first and foremost to protect this country. There's no two ways about it. What Donald Trump has done to make sure, because you've got 7 countries that have no control, no command and control of the people that come and leave their country. So if they don't know who's coming and going, why should we accept people from those countries when they have no idea? Syria and Iraq, they're still in the middle of, extended and protracted wars. They don't know who's coming and going from their country. It's about figuring out if they can't provide the information we need to vet people. If they cannot provide the information we need to vet people coming our direction, then no, you can't come here until you have a system in place that makes it proper. Pretty simple stuff. Free for all Friday, the Steve Gruber Show.
Genuine Michigan common sense on display every day.
All right, welcome back to it. Our next guest, Dr. Dathan Paterno, is a clinical psychologist, clinical director at Park Ridge Psychological Services in Illinois, and leading author of the book Desperately Seeking Parents. But he's been getting death threats and other lovely... Say it again. Oh, yeah, that's right. I got to grab Steve off the hotline first. I'll get to that. Steve in Lansing, welcome to it. Sorry, I got distracted there. Steve, what's on your mind?
I'll be quick. 2 points. First of all, this business of the countries that the ban was put upon, what the country's trying to prevent is for them to jump on a plane, go to France or wherever, and then be able to jump on another plane and come here.
I know what the deal is.
Because those countries, you don't go through the background scrutiny that you would if you were like coming to the U.S.
That's
we take so much for granted.
Steve, you're exactly right. I got to run, but you're exactly right. See, the problem is they have no control and command over their own borders, their own country, their own immigration, so therefore we can't trust it to come here. That's the bottom line. You've got it exactly right. Now back to Dr. Dathan Paterno, who was fired, I understand, Doctor, for your comments about the Women's March that you tweeted out. Welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So you got run out on a rail. Is that what I'm to understand?
Well, yes and no. First of all, the rumor is not true that I was run out of the school board. I voluntarily resigned. My term was just about done. It's a 4-year term, and I was 2 months out from being done. So I voluntarily resigned because of the nonsense that was happening. First of all, it was just silly for my family to have to deal with that. And secondly, the board was doing some pretty important work, and they would be distracted by, calls for my resignation and all that. So I voluntarily decided to get out early. We were pretty much done with the bulk of our work. So it was best for me and for the board for me to excuse myself. But then after that, as you said, I started getting, hundreds of hateful emails and phone calls, and then the death threats came. I had to contact the FBI and local police, and they weren't only contacting me, they were contacting my colleagues, my coworkers, as if they had done something wrong by staying with me, and they were getting some pretty vile and vulgar death threats, which was just, beyond the pale. So it's really been a lesson in just how vile the left can be.
Well, I've read some of your tweets. I didn't find them nearly as vile as I happened to be at the Women's March, kind of an accidental tourist, but I got caught in the middle of that with my wife and my 12-year-old daughter. My 12-year-old daughter saying, well, now, wait a second. And she has no political inkling one way or the other. I thought these people were supposed to love everybody. Why do they have such hateful signs? That came from my daughter.
Right.
I mean, she's 12 years old, and she go, well, why do they say such hateful things about Donald Trump and other people that support him? And I said, well, there you go. And she goes, well, don't I have the same rights as a man? Yeah, as long as I've been alive, you do. I mean, it's absurd. It is absurd.
But that's the absurdity of the left, is that they want to twist and turn everything anybody says who doesn't agree with 100% of their, the leftist orthodoxy, and that's what I did. I was critical of something that some women were doing, and they twisted it and, expanded it into, I'm against all women, I'm a misogynist, and all that kind of stuff. And
they do what they always do. They take something out of context, turn you, well, I'm sure you were a Nazi, because anybody that doesn't have the same exact ideology as them is termed a Nazi as well. So I'm sure you're part of that camp.
Exactly. That's one of the words that they used in their lovely love messages to me.
And a fascist. Let's not forget that part, because those that, are beating people in the streets of Berkeley to make sure that nobody else's opinion is heard is beating those people and calling them fascists as they beat them into the street, because none of the people with the protest signs apparently can read. I wonder who actually makes the signs for them.
I know, it's something that I wonder too, and it's one of the things that about the left that's just becomes far more interesting is the utter projection. Schizophrenia. As a mental health professional, I have to understand what schizophrenia is about, and it's ultimately a projection. It's not that you're coming after me. I'm coming after you, but I can't believe that, so I have to project that onto you. And the left does that with the totalitarian stuff. It's not us that wants to control everything and shut you down. It's you're trying to control us. And so we'll march and protest against that, even though the conservative movement has very little desire to control anybody's behavior.
In fact, we have quite the opposite. We would like people to not concern themselves with what I'm up to, and I'd like to not concern myself with what you're up to, Doctor. But they're so, how did this happen? Did this happen in our institutions of higher learning? We had a couple of teachers here in Michigan that were involving themselves politically with students as young as fourth grade. We've heard these stories. It truly is indoctrination and this mental illness that somehow everything goes. And if you don't accept everything that we believe, then you're a racist and a misogynist and a xenophobe and a bigot and all the things that you said. How do you turn back that tide? Is it even possible?
Sure. Well, yeah, you asked the question, how did this happen? I think the institutions of higher learning were infiltrated by communists and atheists and then the radical feminists. And once there was a critical mass of them, they became, big enough and strong enough that others who agreed became attracted to those groups. And so then you have institutions of higher learning where 90+% have agreement. And so they live in a bubble. They live in their ivory tower, and they get this notion that nobody disagrees with them because nobody in their circle disagrees with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I entertained myself yesterday watching some old Milton Friedman videos on YouTube as he dismembered people with a thing that is long forgotten in higher education. It's called logic. And,
right.
It was beautiful just to watch him fillet people with logic and use their own words and say, no, you've got it exactly upside down and backwards. Here's what you're actually saying, but you think you're saying this. It's fun to watch, but we don't have that kind of learning, it doesn't seem. Not very often. It's not very common on college campuses anymore, although I think there is a renaissance of sorts going on in some places for conservative thought and logic. I'm hopeful. Now, as a clinical psychologist, where do you go from here? Are you done with, whether you say you did the right thing or not, you left public service of being on the school board and so forth because you were run out by the liberals. You were. Do you ever intend to go back and say, I'm going to run again, or is it too much pressure?
I don't think I'm going to do public service anytime soon. My service right now is writing and serving my clients. I am working against the mainstream view of psychiatry, which is that people who are depressed and anxious and who struggle with attention and all that have something wrong with their brain. In my practice, our philosophy is that there's nothing wrong with your brain. There's something wrong with your habits. There's something wrong with your relationships. There's something wrong with your existential foundations. And so I'm doing that on a day-to-day basis with people, but also writing a book on how we can parent better, and it's called Alpha Parenting.
No,
go ahead.
I was going to say, when you get that done, I'd sure like to see it. I was going to say also that ADD makes me who I am, so I can live with it. You adapt, you move along. ADD made me exactly who I am, and I couldn't do this job unless my brain functioned in the peculiar way that it does.
That's right. It's not a disorder or a disability; it's just a difference.
Exactly. It's a style. It's a style that works for me. Anyhow, Doctor, hats off to you. Thanks for doing that. When you get that book closer, we'd sure like to talk to you again. Dr. Dathan Paterno, greatly appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for stopping in. All right. Not enough time to grab the phone call, but sit tight, Tom. We'll get to you and the others on the hotline. It's 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. It's the Steve Gruber Show. We'll be right back.
Keeping you in touch with Michigan and the world.
All right, let's get to that hotline. Tom standing by in Grand Rapids. Tom, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Hey, I picked this up off the internet Monday. A groundbreaking paper that was done in 2014 was published by the Electoral Studies Journal after analyzing the 2008 election. This nonpartisan study concluded that the illegal voting by foreigners skewed the Electoral College vote and illegitimately gave Democrats a 60-vote majority in the Senate. In other words, without illegal voting by non-citizen aliens, Obamacare might never have been passed, and the Ameriphobe Barack Obama might never have been elected. So, these people that are saying that, hey, there's no evidence, we don't need investigation on voter fraud. How in the heck are you going to
well, what was that? What was the study?
Unless you investigate.
What was that study, real quick?
Pardon me?
What was the study again?
The study was Electoral Studies Journal.
All right, I got to run. Greatly appreciate it, Tom, but I wanted to get that in Electoral Studies Journal. I'll go look for it. I'll put it up on the Facebook page, and we'll do it that way. Christopher Harris now here from Unhyphenated America. Christopher, welcome back.
Hey, good morning, Steve.
I've heard a lot of things coming out of Mexico, and I'm referring to an article that you wrote about how, the former President Vicente Fox, who's probably more famous than Nieto, the current president and whatnot, saying, Mexico's, got this resurgence of patriotism and this and that. You know what? The fact of the matter is people vote with their feet. And people have been clamoring to get into America for 100 years, 200 years. We're not trying to get to Mexico. Maybe if they'd get their economy right, get the government out of the way, have a free enterprise system, maybe Mexico would be great for once, but it's not. That's why they keep trying to come here. No, even when this country is watered down with socialist ideas and mentality, it's still a better place than what they've got. Right or wrong?
Oh, that's absolutely true. And like you said, people vote with their feet, and you notice that there's a reason why we have to have we're even talking about building a wall to protect our southern border, but there's never been any talk of building a wall to protect our northern border. And that's quite frankly because Canadians are pretty happy with their country, and so they're not trying to leave their country.
Yeah, exactly. That's an economic fact. People will try to get to where they think they can make their life better for themselves, for their children, for whomever they can get to. And they will do, they'll cross borders. They'll climb the Berlin Wall when it was 15 feet high and razor wire. If that's what it meant to save themselves and their family, they would do it. Still going on in America. America still takes more immigrants than the rest of the world combined. And yet, the left today wants to turn America into what everything else is. Why would you do that? It truly is a mental illness.
Well, Steve, I was actually in Europe in the 1989, 1990 time frame when the Iron Curtain came down. And I remember seeing the flood of East Germans trying to get into West Germany or flooding into West Germany, and they had their little Trabis, right? Their crappy little cars that basically ran off of two hamsters underneath the hood. And you would have them and their whole family. You got mom, dad, brother, sister, grandma, and everybody, and the dog. And they're out there on the Autobahn, which there is no speed limit in many areas of the Autobahn, and they have no idea because even though they are all Germans, over that 50 or so year period when the wall was there, the cultures had changed. So they didn't know the rules, they didn't know the laws, and so there were plenty of accidents because you had somebody doing 150 miles an hour in a BMW coming around a corner, and there's somebody in a Trabi doing 25 miles an hour, and yeah, you can imagine what that was. But yeah, it just kind of goes to show people vote with their feet, and I just had to laugh. When Vicente Fox said that there's a strong Mexican spirit. If that's so true, then what you'll see is an exodus of Mexican citizens, Mexican nationals, heading back south.
Well, exactly, and I don't see that happening yet. Now, the way that people have talked about, trying to change the dynamic a little bit is control, the border with some tariffs, some taxes, maybe put a tax on the money that's sent back to Mexico, because a lot of Mexicans come here, they work tax-free, they send the money back home tax-free. If you just put a small tax on the money going back, maybe that pays for the wall. What are your ideas about how that gets covered?
Yeah, that's a dirty little secret a lot of people are not aware of just how much. I can't remember the exact number, but I've heard it's obviously in the billions of dollars that are sent, via Western Union or whatever other means, wiring money back to Mexican nationals, and wiring money back across the border to their friends or family, whether it's in Mexico or even in Guatemala or wherever place they're from. But yeah, I mean, you're working here most of the time underneath the table. Or they might be stealing Social Security numbers or whatever like that. But long story short, yeah, they're essentially working tax-free, and you could very quickly come up with the money to fund a wall and other security measures if you put a tax on that. And, the thing we always want to point out, Steve, America is not and never has been anti-immigrant.
No, it hasn't. That's exactly right. Go on.
Well, I try to be very specific in language because language matters. I mean, we've seen recently where, of course, the left, they're going to pick apart any and everything that President Trump has to say. And so, I kind of cringe every time I hear people say illegal immigration or refer to somebody as an illegal immigrant, when the reality is they're an illegal alien. That's the more proper legal term, to be an illegal alien versus an illegal immigrant, because immigration is, in fact, a legal thing. Like my mother and father-in-law legally immigrated to the United States, and they went through the process to become American citizens once they left Panama.
Yeah, well, the fact of the matter is the term is illegal alien. We're going to change things. Our security is going to get better. 2 weeks in, the left remains in full-on panic attack mode, but Donald Trump is doing just fine. Stick with it. Relax and Trump on. Christopher Harris, thank you for stopping in.
Hey, thanks, Steve. Take care.
Back in a moment. It's Friday on the Steve Gruber Show.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop.
Got it.
Stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, it is 6 after the hour, and I want to tell you about something a bit different. Something a bit different on this Friday, if you haven't heard about it. They're struggling with a vegetable shortage in the UK. A vegetable shortage in the UK, you see, it started last month with some supermarkets having problems stockpiling lettuce and spinach. Iceberg lettuce now being rationed by many retail chains. Empty shelves are being blamed on bad weather in Spain and Italy. Cold weather, some flooding, and poor light levels in southern Europe have created the perfect storm. Did you hear that? Cold weather. During the winter months, Spain's southeastern region usually supplies about 80% of Europe's fresh produce, but after suffering heavy rains, the worst in about 30 years, only a portion of Murcia's growing fields are usable. Then you coincide that with heavy snow in Italy, which also provides much of the vegetables for Europe. Heavy snow and cold conditions have created a much bigger problem. So there you go, green vegetables being guarded because there's too much cold weather, too much cloudy, cold weather. You draw your own conclusions. There's a gap of about 6 to 8 weeks on lettuce. Nothing coming from Spain for 6 to 8 weeks. Now the lettuce is going to come from America. which costs more but is good for American producers, obviously. Michael Goodwin, who's been in the trade for 40 years, says he's never seen anything like it. That's right. All of this global warming is causing so much snow in Italy and Spain that they can't grow lettuce. You figure it out. It is Free for All Friday. The hotline number 888-900-9966. Where else are you going to hear that story today? And you can see the pictures in the UK and elsewhere of empty shelves where there's no broccoli is also affected. No lettuce, very little broccoli, green vegetables badly affected. A group of 4 French soldiers attacked earlier today, Friday, inside a shopping mall beneath the Louvre. That, of course, in the heart of Paris, attacked by a machete-wielding man shouting, Allahu Akbar. I'm assuming he was Amish. I'm assuming it might mean Allahu Akbar and swinging a machete around. I'm assuming he was Amish because naturally this would have nothing to do with terrorist or terrorism or Islamic extremism or any of that. It would have to be like a PO'd Protestant. One of the soldiers suffered minor injuries and the attacker was gravely wounded. Hopefully he'll just expire and he can go meet his virgins. A military spokesman said the soldiers tried to fight off the assailant before opening fire. One soldier slightly injured, not the one that was shooting. They ventilated him, got that taken care of. Other headlines, Japan reportedly setting up packaging in one big package. Now listen to this. As those on the left continue their hysterical, meltdown, as they continue to have convulsions and panic attacks like Sarah Silverman, who is calling for a military coup to overthrow President Trump, who's, as of today, been in office 2 weeks. While that's going on, President Trump continues to be president and do things. Japan, which has a consistent trade surplus with the United States, is putting the finishing touches on a package that it claims will create 700,000 jobs in the U.S. and help create a $450 billion market. This, according to Reuters, citing government sources familiar with the plans. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and President Trump are expected to meet February the 10th, next week. Major Japanese newspapers cited a draft of the proposal that calls for cooperation on building high-speed trains in the U.S. in the Northeast, also in Texas and California. The two sides also would jointly develop artificial intelligence, robotics, space, and internet technology. The Japanese may use money from its foreign exchange reserves to fund the package, according to Reuters. On a broader basis, the two countries would cooperate in building liquefied natural gas facilities in Asia. That would help expand exports of U.S. natural gas. As I have talked about in this program for years, liquefied natural gas, LNG, is a way to put tremendous amounts of capital into the U.S. and into the U.S. economy. So the two countries are going to cooperate in building liquefied natural gas facilities in Asia, which will help expand exports of United States natural gas and work together to expand nuclear energy-related sales as well. The aim appears to turn what could potentially be a major crisis over trade friction into an incredible business opportunity for both sides. Abe's proposed public-private sector initiative intended to create several 100,000 jobs, according to the reports, and involve $150 billion in new investment in U.S. infrastructure from the Japanese government and private sources to be completed within 10 years. Asked in Parliament about his plans for talks with President Trump, Abe said Japanese companies are making significant contributions to the U.S. economy already and will continue. Toyota, by the way, has been making investments in the U.S. It has built big factories, created jobs. If they make profits, their salaries increase and the benefits for Japan also grow. It's important for each of us to think that way, said Abe. If the United States grows, without a doubt, that benefits Japan. And so Japan, obviously the leader when it comes to high-speed trains and so forth, which has been a debacle in California, because Governor Jerry Brown can't seem to run anything quite right. But it's that liquefied natural gas. I believe that liquefied natural gas from the U.S. can be the real agent of change for the American economy. Energy being the agent of change. We've talked about it in this program for years. It can be the foundation for a new economy here. It can be the foundation for a new tomorrow. It can be the foundation going forward of something exciting. Earlier this week, Abe and other officials rejected accusations that Japan is deliberately seeking to devalue the yen to help its export sector. Abe has been grilled repeatedly in Parliament over Donald Trump's rejection of a regional trade initiative, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and over how he plans to handle friction over trade, saying he believed it was possible to strike a bilateral agreement with the Trump administration, exactly what Donald Trump said. Individual agreements with individual countries. And if those countries don't behave properly, they will be given a 30-day notice to change their policies or be restricted. None of those countries want to be restricted. Not the UK when Theresa May was here. Not Shinzo Abe when he was here. Just relax. It's going the right direction on the Steve Gruber Show.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
You say you want a revolution. Well, you know, we all want to change the world. You tell me that it's evolution. Well, you know.
Well, the fate of Betsy DeVos hangs in the balance. Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins of Maine have defected. Of course, they are big recipients of teacher union money into their campaign, so they backed away from Betsy DeVos. Apparently, a conversation began at 6:30 this morning to consider her nomination, possibly a vote, but it's interesting to notice that and to note that it had been moved back to next week, and now they might be taking care of that now. We'll keep an eye on that. I can't seem to rustle up any new information on it. It's all secret. Here's what's not secret. The Democrats' attack on anything to do with Donald Trump, and certainly Steve Bannon has been the focus of much irrational rage. Speaking of irrational, how about Nancy Pelosi? She may have said the dumbest thing this week. The dumbest thing I heard this week, yeah, because Judge Gorsuch obviously likes dirty air and dirty water and wants to poison children or something like that. Here's something else from Nancy Pelosi, though. Clip 16, talking about Steve Bannon. She actually says the man is a white supremacist. Nancy Pelosi, Steve Bannon. Clip 16, go.
What's making America less safe is to have a white supremacist named to the National Security Council as a permanent member, while the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and the director of national intelligence are told, don't call us, we'll call you. You're no longer permanent members. We'll call you when we need whatever judgment they make about when they want them to come back. It's a stunning thing that a white supremacist, Bannon, would be a permanent member of National Security Council and dismissing chairman of Joint Chiefs and the director of national national intelligence as permanent members.
Do you wonder if her medication gets out of whack sometimes? I mean, I realize she's older, but good Lord. She just sounds out to lunch. Well, and let's keep going. Why not a little more Nancy Pelosi? She's been so entertaining this week. Why not? Clip 17. She says Donald Trump is nothing more than an illusionist. She said that at her weekly briefing. It's clip 17. Go.
Again, the public outcry toward the president's dangerous ban over the weekend was massive, and the president is clearly eager to shift attention away. You notice that every time something gets hot, he changes the subject. He's an illusionist. If you see now, you see it. Now you don't. Mm-hmm. So when the heat was turned up by people turning out at airports throughout the country, probably surprised him. He decided to move up his announcement of his Supreme Court justice from Thursday to Tuesday.
You mean he did what politicians do? He just changed the conversation. By the way, we're going to have a guy here from the Cato Institute here in a bit. David Bier will be here. He says that immigration policy of Donald Trump's is illegal. I strongly disagree. I think that under the Section 212F, the law is pretty clear that the president has not only the right, but the responsibility and the authority to suspend the entry of nationals from any country. And in fact, if you didn't know this, the last 5 presidents have done the exact same thing. Ronald Reagan did it 5 times. George H.W. Bush did it once. Bill Clinton did it 12 times. George W. Bush 6 times. Barack Obama did it 19 times. You've only heard about the one in 2011. Barack Obama specifically blocked people, at least on a temporary basis, 19 different times. And while one can disagree with the policy, it appears quite clear that Donald Trump is well within his right to issue the order. You know, one group, the Council on American Islamic Relations, which some consider to be a terrorist group in the first place, said it's planning more federal lawsuits, but that lawsuit's going to have an uphill climb. Legal experts say citizen relatives of foreigners could have legal standing to pursue a case charging religious discrimination, but in the end, presidents have broad discretion over the nation's immigration and refugee policy. The 1952 immigration law gives the chief executive the power to bar any class of immigrants from the country if allowing them is deemed detrimental to the interests of the United States. It is really that simple. If it's detrimental to the United States, the president has the right to block people from coming here. You don't have to like the policy, but to call it illegal is irrational and inaccurate. By the way, in 2011, the State Department under Hillary Clinton suspended all refugee applications from Iraq. All. So double standards are lovely. I understand that most people can't read. I understand that most people just, they're well, I was told. Well, how do you know this? Well, because I was told so. Told so by who? Well, my friend said. Well, I got an idea. Use that supercomputer in your pocket known as a cell phone or a smartphone, because it really is a supercomputer based on, 1970s or 1980s standards. There's this other thing you may have heard of. It's called Google. You can actually do research for yourself and learn things, and you don't have to rely on the guy next to you to tell you what to think or how to conduct yourself or what, protest sign to carry. You can actually think for yourself. It's an amazing concept in America that people can actually think for themselves. Educate yourself. Learn the truth. The truth is, the President of the United States has every legal right to protect this country how he sees fit. That's why the term is commander-in-chief. It's not commander-sometimes-in-chief or once in a while. It's commander-in-chief. We'll take a quick break. The hotline number, 888-900-9966. We'll be right back.
Covering Michigan and the world from his bunker below the bridge. Here is Steve Gruber.
Darling, you got to let me know. Should I stay or should I go?
Well, all right, welcome back to it.
You say that you are mine.
Welcome back to it. Berkeley. I keep looking at Berkeley and the pictures of the riots in Berkeley over Milo Yiannopoulos, the editor of Breitbart. Here's the guy shouted down and attacked. If I'm not mistaken, he's Jewish, he's gay, but he's conservative. You see, he doesn't buy into all the alt-left movements, and so they decided that when he showed up on campus, they'd call him a Nazi. Funny to call a Jewish man a Nazi, a gay Jewish man at that, but hey, that's what they've done. But it's not the first time Berkeley's been on fire with outrage and students marauding and destroying public property. In fact, it happened in the 1960s when Ronald Reagan was the governor of California. Here's how he responded. Go.
Those people told you for days in advance that if the university sought to go ahead with that construction on that property, that they were going to physically destroy the university. Now, why did you
to negotiate many times?
Negotiate? What is to negotiate? What is... Don't you, wait a minute. On that issue, don't you simply explain to these students that the university has a piece of property that it bought for future construction of the campus, and it was now going ahead with the plan?
The people of
What do you mean,
Reagan
negotiate?
Governor Reagan, the time has passed when the university can just ride roughshod over the desires of the majority of its student body.
Well,
the university is a public institution.
That's
it's an
right.
important institution
But the university...
for all of its own community and for the community of Berkeley that live around it.
All of it began the first time some of you who know better and are old enough to know better let young people think that they had the right to choose the laws they would obey as long as they were doing it in the name of social protest.
And at that point, he got up, pushed the mic away, and walked away. The young people can choose the laws they'll obey as long as it's under the guise of social protest. Such garbage. My next guest, Professor Steve Dulan, member of the Michigan Board of Directors Coalition of Responsible Gun Owners, and a professor himself, a law professor. Professor, welcome back.
Thanks, Steve. Glad to be back.
So what do you make of it? You've watched what's been happening in Berkeley. You see how Ronald Reagan responded to it. Do young people, do they have this free pass today? They think if they're doing it in the name of social justice, they can smash windows and burn things, and it's okay because they're being let get away with it. Do you agree with that?
Well, they absolutely do believe that in many cases, and the reason is they're being taught the same thing by some of the same people that then Governor Reagan, that we just heard, was referring to. It started with the draft dodger movement in the Vietnam era, when these folks were getting deferments from the draft by staying in school, and in some cases getting advanced degrees and getting deferments from the draft. So these that same ideology, that same socialism, took over many of the colleges of education back during that period 40 years ago. And so the teachers, many of the teachers in the high schools, not just the colleges, have come out of that subtle Marxist ideology that's been trained into them. And so we've got an entire generation now who has been taught that this is correct, that you do get to choose which laws you obey and which ones you don't, that you do get to use as an excuse, I was overwrought by the election, therefore I couldn't show up for school or work the other day. This is considered normal. This is the prism through which they view the universe.
Do you think it's really considered normal, or is it just normal in some places? Because I'm pretty sure that if I called to work here and say, or you called to work and said, I'm emotionally overtaken by the election and I'm not going to be in for a couple of days, I think they would say, that's fine. Could you come clean out your desk?
No, it seems insane to people of a certain age, but it is accepted as normal by a significant portion of this younger generation because it is exactly what was indoctrinated into them in the government indoctrination camps that many of our schools have become. I don't know if it's the majority yet, but we're talking about a significant minority, at least, of public schools have become government indoctrination camps that teach socialism.
But I see a lot of people fighting back, pushing back, people like myself, pushing back on and teaching the truth to our children. I mean, I had to have conversations about some of these things, and I cannot, the fact of the matter is I can't believe some of the things that are being taught, but I push back. I step up. I know parents are doing that. Have we reached a point where people have had it up to here, and instead of just sitting quietly by like they did for so long, now they're pushing back?
And thank goodness for you and others who do this every day. And I know you do it every day. And it is a fight. It's a long slog to bring us back from the precipice of just utter madness taking over our entire culture.
I see. So what do you think we do to get us back on track? Is it even possible?
I believe it's possible. Otherwise I'd just be bunkered up someplace in a bunker under the bridge, and not even taking my time to have this conversation if I didn't believe it was possible. It's certainly possible, and there's hope every day. And the election going the way it did, and seeing that our Supreme Court is not completely lost, hopefully, there's certainly a huge beacon of hope. It's not just a flicker or a glimmer like I held several months ago. I think things are turning around. I do believe that. In fact, I saw Milo on television last night, and I agreed with him that.
How is it, by the way, with Milo that they attacked? Here's an openly gay Jewish guy who they're calling a Nazi because, again, it's not about being a Nazi. It's about the fact that he doesn't believe what the left believes. So therefore, he's this horrible thing. I mean, they're burning the place down for a gay Jewish guy who happens to be a conservative thinker. Thinker is the key word here. He thinks for himself, Professor.
Well, in my opinion, the root of the madness of Marxism is in the concept of false consciousness. Essentially, if you're a dyed-in-the-wool Marxist and you hear something you disagree with, you simply say that person is experiencing false consciousness and literally doesn't understand the true nature of the universe. That's the core of Marxist madness.
I'm sorry, what?
So if I'm a Marxist and you say something I disagree with, all I have to do is say, oh, poor non-Marxist person, you're experiencing false consciousness. You think you understand something, but you clearly don't because you disagree with me.
False consciousness.
That's right there in Das Kapital.
I read a lot, but I missed that one along the way. But it's a fun term. I mean, as you know, I read a ton, but that's a fun term. The beautiful thing about my life is I get to learn new things every day. I'm not locked into one set of beliefs. I learn new things and read different things all the time. And that's the beauty of it. I'll give you the last word there, Professor, on the future of college kids and kids in general.
Well, take heart. Plato was complaining about the youth of his day being undisciplined and upsetting to him for their music, their clothes, and their manners.
Right. Meanwhile, on college campuses today, kids are playing with Play-Doh. But it's a different thing. Professor, thank you so much.
Thanks, Steve.
Have a great day. Professor Steve Dulan here. We'll be right back.
The Steve Gruber Show, American Values with Midwestern Common Sense.
Hey, it's Friday. If you'd like to join me, feel free. It's 888-900-9966. The slowest process of getting confirmations to a presidential cabinet that I can ever remember. As the Democrats continue to play games, but the Republicans have had it. They said, then don't show up. We'll just vote without you. We just make a rule change and do it. While the Democrats talk about divisiveness in Washington, they fuel the fire by throwing gasoline upon it. But Rex Tillerson did finally get through, confirmed as the Secretary of State. My next guest, Colonel Rob Maness, former United States Senate candidate and retired as a lifelong record of providing dedicated service. Colonel, welcome to the program.
Hey, good morning, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
So tell me about Rex Tillerson in your eyes. Obviously, he went through a kind of a bruising a battle, not as bad as some, but worse than others. People saying, well, he has too close to ties with Russia, and he's a businessman, and he doesn't. This businessman had a company, ExxonMobil, that he had 75,000 people below him. Well, he made too much money. He's too rich. You mean he's too successful? When did success start getting demonized in America?
Well, I think when we started, growing legions of career politicians and career bureaucrats that fail to recognize what success in America is anymore. And, for 8 years we've heard about divisiveness and those kind of things by an administration full of people that practice at dividing Americans up by different types of groups and everything. I think Mr. Tillerson is going to bring a breath of fresh air to the State Department. State Department is one of the worst bureaucracies that I've ever experienced in my 30-plus years of service to the United States government in uniform. There are many folks that will disagree with President Trump's policies. Mr. Tillerson, as you mentioned, had 75,000 employees with ExxonMobil around the world. But more importantly, though, he's got relationships with world leaders from a business perspective, and he's been highly successful at maintaining those relationships.
And let's be honest, at that level, when he's talking to people, he knows how to conduct himself. He knows the protocol, if you will, when you're in meetings of that nature. He knows how to get what he needs done because he's done it for so many years. He's been to dozens of countries. He's already dealt with dozens of political leaders, including heads of state all over the world, correct?
Absolutely. And the relationship with Mr. Putin and Russia that the lefties are all concerned about, I think is a positive trait for Mr. Tillerson that's going to help the United States be able to communicate more effectively when we're not happy with what they're doing, especially because he'll have access to the top leadership and the actual decision makers so that we can get past all of the propaganda media that gets put out there, the fake news that the Russians may be looking at in open sources and even from some of their intelligence sources. So that access, I think, is going to be crucial to the next 4 years and, getting that relationship really on a track that should be one of at least peers or near peers that can have positive and negative aspects to it. We've always had a relationship with the folks in Eastern Europe, and it's never been the most friendly, but it's also been one of the ability to communicate with each other at the right levels, and I think this is going to bring that back because I don't believe that the Obama administration had that ability.
I don't think so either. I think they had career politicians. I don't think that Hillary Clinton was particularly accomplished. I think that John Kerry, in my estimation, was a bit of a weakling, frankly. I don't think Rex Tillerson is going to come from the point of weakness. He's going to come from a point, because here's what there's no substitute for, Colonel, in my estimation: experience. And what Rex Tillerson has a boatload of is experience in these sorts of conversations.
Absolutely. And the experience to get the conversation to a place where we can actually talk about what the needs of someone, one country that he's talking with, or better yet, the needs of the United States of America. And as we've all seen, Mr. Trump is a man of his word, and he is a policy of putting American citizens' status and priority as the first thing under his America First policy, and I think that's going to bring a lens that Mr. Tillerson is going to work through with these nations like Russia and other nations around the world that really changes the page that these folks have been on with us for the last 8 years.
So when you look at the I don't know, the field ahead, as you look out across and kind of look into your crystal ball a little bit, Colonel Rob Maness here talking about Rex Tillerson. When you look across the playing field and the things that could come, North Korea is a big concern. Iran is a big concern. Obviously, the president currently having an argument back and forth about whether or not immigrants should come from certain countries that don't have control over their own immigration. So why should we allow them to come here? And the answer is we shouldn't. And in fact, each of the last 6 presidents has done the same thing. But of course, this time around, it's racist, it's bigoted, it's misogynist, it's BS from the left is what it is. But as you look at the terrain, what are the biggest concerns you have?
Well, what scared the lefties with the immigration restrictions is that we're actually going to enforce the law that's on the books, and that's what's got them all spun up, even though we use the same exact words, and Mr. Trump staff used the same country list from the Obama administration. So, but he's insisting that we enforce current law, and that's what's got them all scared. So I agree with him, and everybody else that supported Mr. Trump that supports the United States agrees with him. But Iran, I believe, is the biggest near threat over the next 6 months to a year. They have been intransigent since the weak Obama administration signed off on this agreement with them. Now they've got probably, if not all of it, most of the dollars that have been held for years and years and years that were given to them in cash,
right,
have probably already been turned into funding sources
probably
for many terrorist organizations.
Colonel, we got to leave it there. I greatly appreciate the conversation. A good one. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Colonel Rob Maness here on the program. We'll be right back.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy.
Education.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, it is Friday, my friends, and I know you're ready for it. A beautiful winter here in Michigan. If you want to get outside and enjoy winter activities, this will be it. If you don't, then stay inside, have a hot coffee, a hot toddy. I don't care, whatever makes you happy. It's the Steve Gruber Show. You can get a hold of me here at 888-900-9966. The Border Patrol enjoying an all-time lift in morale because of Donald Trump. That, according to agents and supervisors in the field, unprecedented support the agency received from Trump, reinvigorating folks there, they say. It's been years that they've been hampered by inadequate funding, dismal resources, seesaw policy changes. In late January, Trump laid out a forceful yet controversial border security policy through executive orders that included suspending catch and release and pledging to hire 5,000 more agents for the border. And apparently it's inside the agency. They are very pleased about that. Going to the hotline now, Frank standing by, just checking in from DeWitt, Michigan. Frank, welcome to the program.
Yes, good morning. Down with the Democrats. We're going to murder them in 2 years.
Whoa!
We're going to murder them.
We can't say that. That's safe for Sarah Silverman, who's calling for a military coup.
I meant at the polls. We're going to get stabbing all out of there. But I had to call because this radio station just now at the top of the hour, it's just hilarious. Listening to their line polls, the polls that said Hillary Clinton was going to win. While all the polls on the internet said, don't listen to the lying media, Trump is actually way ahead and is going to win. So now they tell us the poll, we really want more gentle, peaceful Muslims here to do what they did to do, what they're doing in Europe. So I just wanted to urge everybody, go on the internet, see what you're missing. Call up Milo, for instance. The man is a genius. He absolutely eviscerates Democrats that try to argue with him. They're no match for him. And look and see what's happening in Sweden and Germany, where
Sweden's having some trouble. Yeah, Sweden's having some real trouble. Angela Merkel has now admitted she made a grave mistake, but it might be too late to correct that problem. Frank, thank you so much for checking in because your points are all valid and on. Well, they're spot on, my friend. Thank you for checking in. By the way, he made me think I should look at the polling numbers, so I did. I just pulled up the Rasmussen daily tracking poll. 53% of Americans approve of the job Donald Trump is doing. That's as of yesterday, 2 weeks in, which is, incredible because if you watch the evening news, you would think that the country's coming apart at the seams. 47% disapprove of the job Trump is doing so far. Meanwhile, Americans are far more optimistic about their economic future since Trump's election as president, according to the poll. 56% say they want the U.S. Congress, which is dominated by Republicans, to cooperate with the president as much as possible. Can you believe that? The daily tracking results collected by phone, 500 likely voters each night, has a margin of error 2.5 points. Anyhow, 53% say they support President Trump at this point. So there you go. Back to what we were talking about before Frank called in. That hotline number, by the way, 888-900-9966. Republicans on a Senate committee yesterday decided they just suspended the panel rules so they could vote on President Trump's Environmental Protection Agency nominee. They just couldn't take it anymore. Jeff Pruitt, of course, the man making his way through. Republicans on the Environment and Public Works Committee, led by Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming. And trust me, in places like Wyoming and Montana, I used to live in Montana, as you probably know from listening to the program. I lived there for several years. Nobody's more concerned about the environment than people that live in the western United States, because they thrive with wildlife, rainbow trout, North American elk, antelope, and the list goes on and on and on. Montana, at the time I was there, had 10 big game animals that you could hunt each year. Since that time, one of the bears was taken off, but not because the population changed. But anyhow, they care more about the environment than anybody. So when John Barrasso, the senator from Wyoming, says, let's just get this through and get it done, it's because he supports what's going on and believes that the EPA is overstepping its bounds. Meanwhile, the maneuver means that Senate Republicans have changed committee rules twice this week to overcome Democratic protests. It's not even protests. They're not even showing up. The Democrats don't even have the courtesy to show up to the meetings. They stand outside in the hallway, and walk around. What were they elected to do? Seriously, what were they elected to do? The only person that's really in any sort of peril as far as being named to the cabinet is Betsy DeVos. Michigan's Betsy DeVos may or may not make it as the education secretary. That's because two senators, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska and Susan Collins of Maine, have both said that they can't support her. And that's because piles of money come to both of those folks from the teachers' unions. The hotline, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. Dan in Grand Rapids checking in with the program. Dan, welcome to it.
Yeah, good morning, Steve. In the late 1960s, I was a student at Michigan State University, and of course we had a lot of Vietnam demonstrations going on there. But to just show you how times have changed, the SDS, Students for a Democratic Society, threatened to shut down the basketball game on the campus there at Michigan State University. And what happened was the football team got into Jennison Fieldhouse and sat in the front row of the bleachers all the way around the court there. And people from my dormitory, back then it was an all-male dormitory, we went down to confront the demonstrations. Well, guess what? They never happened because there were people there to shut it down. And that's why I'm so disappointed with the people in Berkeley. Not a policeman was there.
No, that's been going on in Berkeley since the 1960s. We played that clip from Ronald Reagan when he was governor earlier. That garbage has been going on there, Dan, for an awfully long time. It's probably going to continue because they believe that if it's in the name of social justice, you can burn down the dormitories and nobody cares. Dan, great call. Great little bit of history lesson from Michigan State University. Greatly appreciate that. But the liberals are a different breed today. Listen, John Kennedy wouldn't be in the Democratic Party today, nor would Lyndon Johnson, nor certainly would Harry Truman. Good Lord, they'd run him out in a heartbeat. Because the Democratic Party has people like Sarah Silverman, who's calling for a military coup to overthrow President Trump. No, I'm not making this up. She sent out a tweet yesterday. Wake up. Join the resistance. Once the military is with us, fascists get overthrown. Mad King and his handlers go bye-bye. Sarah, keep smoking the ganj. Because if you didn't realize, the military voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump to be president. Maybe you missed that. The military has great faith in Donald Trump as its commander-in-chief. So, Sarah, just keep on the weed train. Yeah. 14 after, you're listening to The Steve Gruber Show.
Taking a closer look at the stories that affect you most with a big dose of common sense.
Never before have I turned on you when you look too good to me. Your beady eyes that can cut me in two and I just can't let you be. But it's a free for all and a heart I said, you can bet your life. Stakes are high and so am I. It's in the air tonight.
All right, welcome back to it. Some conversation out there, but not a lot of it, but some conversation out there about whether or not it's legal to ban refugees and immigrants from certain countries. It's quite clear that in my estimation, it's perfectly legal because the president has every right to suspend or otherwise restrict the entry of individual aliens or class of aliens in conjunction with the imposition of financial sanctions upon these aliens. Among the so-called excluded have been aliens whose actions threaten the peace, security, or stability, of our nation. So there's no question that, and in fact, if you look back at the last 5 presidents, and it depends on who's counting, if you look back at the last 5 presidents, it depends on who's counting, you will find that Ronald Reagan did what President Trump did here 5 times. George H.W. Bush did it once. Bill Clinton did it a dozen times. George W. Bush 6 times, and Barack Obama 19 times. Nobody screamed racism or bigotry or misogyny or any of the other garbage then. This is not because people are against Trump's ban on immigrants from 7 countries. And the reason we're banning people from 7 countries is because those people have no command and control over their own borders. They have no idea who's coming and going, and therefore we can't trust who comes in. The hotline number, 888-900-9966. Lee is in Eaton Rapids today. Lee, what are your thoughts?
Well, Steve, this is a little bit off topic, but since it's Open Line Friday.
It is.
I pass out food at my church's food bank and through St. Vincent de Paul, and when people come in, they have to sign for the food because we have to submit this information to the Greater Lansing Food Bank. And last fall, this lady comes in. She's about in her 20s, and she's unable to sign her name, and she can barely print. Now, there was nothing physically wrong with her, but she tells me that she was never taught how to write in school. Now, my kids have been out of school for a long time, and I don't know any teachers. And my question to you is, if schools just stopped teaching children how to write?
Well, there's a big debate on whether children should be taught cursive right now, but of course they've been taught the language. I don't actually know. That's an interesting point that she was never taught how to write. Why? Because she had a computer keyboard in front of her the whole time? Is that your guess?
Yeah, that's my question. I don't know. So they're not taught to use their hands anymore other than punch out keys, I guess. So I was just wondering. I didn't know.
That's it. Well, Lee, it's an interesting question, and it is Free for All Friday, so I'm going to put it out to the audience. How much are we teaching our children to actually write using pencils, pens, or well, in the case of some universities, crayons? But Lee, I greatly appreciate you calling in. Thank you so much. I'll put it out there, see what people say. The hotline number, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966 is the number to call. Seems unusual question. I don't know. Todd is listening in Ann Arbor this day. Todd, welcome to the program.
Morning, Steve.
What's on your mind?
Hey, I'd like to change up topics. Talk about cybersecurity.
All right.
I work for a good-sized fire department in Washtenaw County, and cybersecurity issues have been blessed by somebody upon us with the fire dispatching system. Someone's hacked into the system and disabled what's called a rip and run. It's a printout for the firemen to go to grab as they go out to the fire truck to go on a call.
So it's basically the location of the emergency, whatever that emergency may be. Here's your rip, and you take it with you. You take the piece of paper so you can convey to the driver, if you're not the driver, where you need to be.
Correct. The truck boss takes care of assisting in navigation for the driver, just like what you described. So that would entail anybody on the system, which is most of Washtenaw County. Only because they changed over from something of an old-style secure system to an internet-based dispatching system.
So you're saying the system has been hacked recently?
Yep.
Is it functional properly now?
Not yet. Well, we do give voice at this point still over for the station PA when we get
No, I
calls.
understand that, but somehow your system, is it possible that somebody could hack into the system and shut down the communication you have altogether? That's frightening, Todd. Is what you're that's disturbing.
Yeah, no, I believe that can happen because they chose not to go with a backup system. They have an internet-based system, and even the radio system concerns me because the way the setup is could still even be hacked.
Well, Todd, check back in with us here in a couple of days. Let us know what's going on with that, because if the emergency dispatch system has been hacked in Washtenaw County, which is what you're telling us, that would be concerning to hundreds of thousands of people potentially. So keep us informed. Thank you for the phone call. I appreciate it, and we're going to keep an eye on it. Now, while I'm speaking of cybersecurity, I got a note from a listener here. He sent me a page from Facebook. Shows two people on there, a man and a woman, nothing serious. He goes, here's Exhibit A, that they are having algorithms read each and every email we send in this country. How does Facebook know I even know these people? One books transportation for my company. Only contact I have is email and phone. The other is a broker involved in a single real estate deal to move an office. I have no links to these people other than email and phone, and yet here they are being recommended as people I know so I can connect with them on Facebook. Think about that. Dick, sit tight. I'll get to your phone call because I want to give you enough time to talk. Think about that. How does somebody know to send you a Facebook? Here's somebody you might know, and the only connection this guy has to them is an email and a phone number and single business deals. That should concern you when it comes to cybersecurity. 25 after on the Steve Gruber Show.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
When I was young, it seemed that life was so wonderful. A miracle, oh, it was beautiful, magical. And all the birds in the trees, well, they be singing so happily, oh, joyfully.
All right, welcome back to it. Glad to have you here. I just get so confused. Sarah Silverman and others calling for a military overthrow of Donald Trump because he's been such a horrible president in the 13 days he's been in office. Wow. Yeah. And of course, the ban on immigrants is, racist and bigoted. Of course, when Barack Obama blocked immigrants at different times, 19 separate occasions, that was perfectly okay. Dick is checking in from Ann Arbor. Dick, welcome to the program.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for taking my call. I had to laugh. I've been watching the tolerance of the left, and here in Ann Arbor, we've got a very famous restaurant, a delicatessen, that is Zingerman's down here.
Yes.
And they've been all over the news with their safe spaces, and that they're going to have everybody's welcome. That they're going to be a sanctuary restaurant down here.
What does that mean?
Apparently, everybody's welcome. Okay, whether you're an illegal alien, a refugee, a jihadist, whatever the case may be, but their sign, they actually have signs they're holding up that say "Sanctuary Restaurant." They've been in the news down here, and I just wanted to test that level of tolerance because I'm tempted, although I'm not a open carry advocate. I would just enjoy seeing if their level of tolerance was such that if I showed up, I was welcome as well, or if it's only illegals and dangerous people.
I think you should put on a bright red hat that says "Make America Great Again" and walk in there and see how tolerant they are, Dick. Thank you for the call in. I greatly appreciate it. I think a bright red hat would tell you everything you needed to know about tolerance at that sanctuary restaurant. Jason, the next up on the hotline before we get to our weekend special, Megan Barth. Jason, what's on your mind?
Well, was it Dick? The previous caller, since he mentioned it, I actually am an advocate for open carry because if people can see that you have a gun, they're a lot less likely to mess with you. And I have some friends who have actually personally experienced that. Somebody was approaching them and very, very suspiciously, and then he saw that they were both open carrying, and he crossed the street again the other way and left them alone. I mean, was a crime about to be committed? We can't prove that, but it sure looked like it.
Well, there you go. What else is on your mind real quick?
Well, I wanted to clarify. I don't think Facebook reads email messages. I don't think they have that kind of access. What they're doing, and they've gotten very good at it, is they are analyzing your friends and everybody else's friends.
Right, but he had no connection to these people. I think it's a browser issue, actually, that's feeding the information potentially.
It could be.
Yeah.
It could be, but what happens a lot of times, I think, especially in areas where perhaps it's a smaller area, is that you have friends and they have friends, and maybe even a couple people removed. You know a lot of people, and we've talked about that in the past. I think with other people, we know everybody 2 or 3 times removed, and I think that's just what Facebook is doing. They're analyzing who you know and who the other people know, and the people in the middle are the people they suggest.
Well, Jason, thank you for checking in and clarifying that. I mean, we'll keep an eye on that. I don't like it. I think it's bizarre how, also on Facebook can connect me to somebody that I'm 6 steps removed from, but somehow the algorithms can figure it out. I'm not 6 steps removed from Megan Barth. No, I'm only 6 days removed because I have her here every Friday. Megan Barth from ReaganBaby.com. Welcome to it, sweetheart.
Well, good morning. Did I hear that correctly, that there's a Jewish deli that wants to make itself a safe space?
Yes.
Is that what I heard?
Yes.
Okay. I think that actually the caller should go in with a machete, and he should scream Allahu Akbar, and see if he can get a ham sandwich.
Oh.
And then see how much of a safe space that Jewish deli is willing to give. Because that's basically just what happened to the Louvre. And I don't know if you checked Drudge headlines this morning, but I always do that. Yes. So this is hilarious. Okay, the Drudge headline says machete-wielding man slumps to the ground after being shot in the stomach at the Louvre Museum as he attacked French soldiers while screaming Allahu Akbar. And then the last bullet point, the identity and nationality of the attacker are not yet known. Do you think he's a Presbyterian?
Well, I said earlier I was pretty sure he was Amish.
Yes. The Quakers are going crazy.
I'm pretty sure he rode a horse to the event, and didn't want to use modern transportation. Yes, and he's right there.
I think that we should go to all these new sanctuary campuses and delis and restaurants and cities and just dress in like a burqa and wield a machete and scream Allahu Akbar and see what happens.
But see, I wouldn't do that in Michigan or Texas or Ohio because we have a thing called concealed pistol licenses, and I think somebody would not see the humor in it real quickly. You wouldn't need a police officer around. Not where I am, I can tell you that.
But you're in a safe space,
Let me ask you about something here.
This is the logic of the left.
Well, here's the logic of the left. Sarah Silverman, who I'm pretty sure despises the military, calling for a military overthrow of President Trump 13 days into his presidency because after 13 days, clearly, he's become a dictator. I mean, who are these morons? First of all, I don't know this woman particularly well. I saw her once. I thought she was very unfunny and very anything. How she became famous is beyond me. But seriously, calling for a military overthrow of Donald Trump. Now, if I had said that about Barack Obama, I'm pretty sure within a few minutes there had been a knock on my door. What do you think?
Well, it's funny because I think 70% of the military actually voted for Trump. So is she asking for the 30% of the military to have a coup? Because that doesn't really work.
I'm not even sure it was 30%, but you might be right.
I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt because usually 30% you can write off in our country, that they're completely brain dead, they don't know where they're going, they don't know what they're doing, they just have their hands out, and they scream Putin and fake news. And where's the tax return?
Now, are you a coffee person?
I am.
All right, so so am I. I could give up a lot of things. Coffee would be, like I could give up alcohol and a lot of things long before I could give up coffee, right? Much easier for me to do. But if Starbucks was the last coffee shop on the planet, I would learn to drink water. And Howard Schultz or whatever his name is, the CEO who's going to hire 10,000 refugees, I wouldn't go there. But I would go to the Black Rifle Coffee Company, founded by a veteran, who says they will be hiring 10,000 veterans now in response to Starbucks. The Black Rifle Coffee Company. I would crawl on my hands and knees through broken glass to get coffee from this guy.
Absolutely. I saw that. I think you might have posted it, and I saw it.
Yeah, I think I did.
That's a great thing about small business and how we need to rally around small business, and I call them the Red Hat Brigade. You know, there are more of us than there are of them. Even though Howard Schultz has a much larger platform and he's got coffee shops as prolific as 7-Eleven, okay, he's still in the minority. Because I don't care what they say about the popular vote, the Electoral College, the majority of us, the hardworking men and women, the men and women in the Rust Belt, okay, where they thought they had the blue wall all situated, we busted it through. So this is the same thing, and I think that the more
I stood here kicking that wall every day for weeks on end. We finally broke that. Now sit tight, Megan, because I got some other things I want to talk to you about, like the Democrat plan to protest Donald Trump's speech in front of Congress here in a couple of weeks. We'll talk about that and much more. Megan Barth is with ReaganBaby.com. Put that on something to check out for your list of things to do this Friday. We'll be right back on the Steve Gruber Show.
Getting your day started with news from around the state and around the world. Common Sense Radio. This is the Steve Gruber Show.
My new theme song for the Democrats. Yes, it's my new theme for the Democrats. Megan, do you like it?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Why can't we be friends? I mean, you guys are all inclusive for diversity and all that hugging and loving and carrying on and pink hats and the whole bit. And you like pink hats, but you hate red hats. I'm a little confused. But House Democrats apparently rallying behind a plan here to make President Trump's first speech to Congress a big protest, as uncomfortable as possible. Inviting guests, they say, will suffer under the new White House policies like LGBT people. Now, didn't he just say that he's going to extend all the policies for the gay community that were put into place under Barack Obama? Didn't he just say that?
Yeah, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah, and didn't he just, put more jobs in place and start a conversation with Japan that's going to bring 700,000 new jobs to America? And didn't he say he's going to make America a better place for the kids and he wants everybody to get together? Just none of it matters.
No, that doesn't matter because he's a racist, homophobe, xenophobe, misogynist, corporatist, son of a bitch. Can I say that?
Well, you did. I'm going to go with it.
Sorry.
No, I think you can. It's perfectly fine.
Okay.
So,
right.
So
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what he does, as long as they have their talking points to vilify him and anyone that supports him. That's all that matters. And as long as they have the rioters behind them, like we saw in Berkeley last night, and that we will continue on seeing all over the country, whenever there is a conservative speaker on a campus or somewhere else, we are going to see the violence.
And Milo, this is the crazy thing. Milo is a gay Jewish man. Okay, he's
conservative too.
Yeah, so it's not about anything except that his thoughts don't conform with what they say the way you must think and the how you must think and the things you must think, because he has an independent streak in him and he is an independent thinker. He's gay. He's Jewish, which would traditionally put him in groups to the left, if you're going to stereotype in that way. But he's not. He is a conservative thinker, and he's outspoken on globalism and the tyranny of the left. And so, therefore, he's a Nazi. Can you imagine a gay Jewish man being called a Nazi while they try to burn down Berkeley? That's the absurdity of it, Megan.
Well, right. And then I always said that Bruce Jenner's problem was not that he transformed into a woman. It was that he was a conservative. That was the cardinal sin. I mean, he could have been an LGBT, QIA, whatever, and a liberal, and he would have been completely embraced. But the moment that he actually said that he was a Republican, he was shunned. He was absolutely shunned by the left, because being a conservative or believing in smaller government or anything that is antithetical to the left is the cardinal sin. It is fascism at its finest.
Yeah, so and that's the point. The thought police are out there, and we played a clip from Ronald Reagan earlier saying when you gave college students the idea that they could choose and pick and choose which laws they wanted to obey, and they could destroy public property as long as it was in the name of social justice or whatever. That's where you people that should have known better, are old enough to know better, were completely wrong. And Ronald Reagan was exactly right. They don't get to pick and choose which laws they want to obey, which is the problem people are having with Donald Trump, because these executive orders that he is signing, all they're doing is ordering people to enforce the laws that were signed by previous presidents. The wall, signed by George W. Bush in 2006. The ban on travel from 7 nations on a temporary basis, signed by Barack Obama in December of 2015. And the reason the law was created is because nations like Iraq and Syria have no internal controls at all. So we have no idea who's coming and going from those countries. Therefore, we can't just let them in freely to our country. It's not racist. It's not anti-Muslim. It's common sense.
Well, you're exactly right, but we wouldn't hear that from the press because it's supposedly a Muslim ban. The Muslim ban is here. All the Muslims are banned. It's a Muslim ban. Well, what about the Cuban ban? No one's talking about the Cuban ban. And the Cuban ban was actually implemented also by Barack Obama, whereby he just unilaterally evoked the rescindants of wet foot, dry foot. So he had 100 Cubans that were waiting for in exile, waiting to have refugee status in America. And 2 days before he left our White House, he's like, "Nah, you know what? I think you belong in a Cuban prison for the rest of your life. And you know what? You're going to be tortured and probably killed too. But I really don't give a fly."
And he turned them away.
Correct.
That's right. And he turned them away, but that's not racist.
But we never heard about the Cuban ban, did we? And that was the largest human rights, most egregious action against human rights that Barack Obama did in his 8 years. And he did it 2 days before he left office.
But that's not racist. That's not anti-Hispanic. No. That's not anything. Right.
No. So, we don't really know what that is.
How long until he starts coming along trying to create more division in America? How long does he before he become openly active? A week, a month? It won't be very long.
No, it only took him 10 days to pipe off. I mean, he got back from Necker Island, the private island of Richard Branson, and then he's like, these protesters at the airports, they're great, you know. So this is what he does. He is a trained community organizer, and this is why we've seen so much dissent and chaos over not just the last 8 years, but why we're going to see it for the next 8 years, as long as the funding keeps going. So we have, Democracy Alliance, we have the Ford Foundation, we have 200 different non-governmental organizations funded by George Soros that are going to keep these rioters in business. As long as they can cash paychecks,
that's right,
they are going to continue to riot.
You got it. Megan Barth.
Obama's going to be right behind them.
Always a pleasure. You can find out more at ReaganBaby.com. ReaganBaby.com. Megan Barth there. Great columnist and great conversation. Thank you, Megan. Have a great Friday.
You're welcome. Thank you. You too.